that is one of the most important aspects and lessons that I want to give to people in learning freestyle staff spinning. Is it's the ultimate metaphor for life. You drop it, you pick it up, you do it again, because eventually you will catch it.
Bienvenue dans le premier épisode de Light Stories. Nous découvrons ensemble des parcours uniques et inspirants afin de comprendre et de résoudre la complexe équation de la réussite. Dans ce premier épisode, mes amis, j'ai l'honneur et la chance de recevoir Christa Smith. Pour ceux qui ne la connaissent pas déjà, Michelle est reconnue comme une femme d'excellence à multi-facette. Elle est actrice de doublure, cascadeuse pour de grandes productions hollywoodiennes. Elle a joué dans Deadpool, Red Reading, Supergirl et bien d'autres. Elle maîtrise de nombreux arts martiaux à un niveau professionnel comme le muay thai et le kickboxing. Elle est championne du monde de twirling, a performé dans les plus grands cirques américains, puis a créé une communauté de plusieurs milliers de personnes autour de l'art du freestyle staff spinning et du Light Saber. Elle est surnommée aussi la Woman Jedi avec une communauté de plus de 500 000 personnes sur Instagram et plus de 250 000 sur YouTube. Elle a transformé son art en un mouvement international et créé une académie qui compte aujourd'hui plusieurs milliers d'élèves. Ladies and gentlemen, découvrons ensemble le parcours de Christa Smith. Hi, Michelle. Thank you very much for being here and taking the time to share your incredible success story. I am grateful and happy to have you today on the very first episode of Lights on Stories, especially for doing a part of this interview with your beautiful cat, Ozzy. Michelle, when I discovered you, I was really fascinated by your woman Jedi world, your art, and how you made it, shape it, and transform it during the last 20 to 30 years. Before we go to your whole success story, if someone that's never listened or heard about baton thriller or freestyle staff spinning, how would you describe it into your own words?
Baton twirling is an old sport. Typically people think of it as twirl or marching and majorette, which is not what it is. It's more rhythmic gymnastics meets figure skating meets acrobatics. And then I did that for my whole life. And then I transformed that and combined it with martial arts. And that's where I came up with freestyle staff spinning. And that's where the Light Saber spinning comes in too. And so it's the combination of two very beautiful practices into one. And you have freestyle staff spinning.
I love that. Thanks for sharing that with us. Now I would like to do a step back 20 to 30 years from now. Can you share with me and with us how the Michelle success story started?
Well, my story starts when I was 5 years old, so it was more than 20 years ago. I joined the sport of baton twirling. Like I said, it's an old sport. Figure skating meets rhythmic gymnastics. And I was very serious in that. So by the time I started when I was 5, by the time I was 9, I was competing at a national level. By the time I was 11, I was competing at an international level, going to the world championships, which is the highest level that the sport of baton has to offer. And it was everything about my life. I trained 7 days a week, 40 hours a week. It was a job that I had. And myself and my two teammates, we're all the same age, blonde hair, blue eyes. We were the top 3 in Canada pretty much our entire careers and among the top seeded in the world. So it was it was an exciting time. It was challenging. It was very intense, and it felt important. And I think that's why I continued with it. So once generally people graduate and they retire, and I felt like I had more to do. I felt like I had just scratched the surface about what this could be. And I remember saying very, very young that my life's work will be to change the way people see baton twirling. Because right now that you get this image of some girl in a pageant or marching in a parade, and that's nothing about what I did. It was very athletic and very artistic. And so once I graduated, I just continued on. And during our training, we also danced full time. So I was also competing full time in dance. I had like solos and groups and trios and all of that. So I decided that once I graduated high school and I was ready to move into a professional world, I was going to be a dancer. I was going to dance for the Backstreet Boys. That was my big goal. And apparently by the time I made it to Vancouver and LA, when I was ready to turn professional, they weren't that cool anymore. So that dream sort of died. But through that, I started just pushing forward of like, oh, I want to dance. I did a tap show for a few years and then felt like dance wasn't giving me everything that I needed. I needed something a little more athletic. So I got into circus arts. And then I started working with a professional circus company for about 10 years. And that's when I became a working professional artist. The majority of my income was coming from performing on stage. And I did the silks, I did a hoop act, I had a rope act, I did handstands, I had a contortion act, which is funny because I am not a contortionist. I did a hand-to-hand act, which is partner balancing. So I had a little partner and I lifted her up and we did some cool stuff. And then through circus, I started meeting stunt performers in film and television. And one of them one day was just like playing around with a sword. And I was just like, oh, I can do that. And then I just walked up to him and was like, can I try? And then started doing that. And they're like, oh, you're really good. And it was just sort of like was this light bulb moment of this is where my worlds can combine. This is where this very intense, very technical training that I grew up with that has been serving me. It has allowed me to learn all these different skills. Now I see where I could take it in a way that feels interesting to me, because during the circus world, like I've been in the Cirque du Soleil database for a long time, and they always want me to do like baton things, or it's called manipulation in the circus world. And I was like, oh, I'm kind of bored because I've been doing that my whole life. But then when I found stunts and martial arts, I was like, oh, that feels interesting to me. And that was a moment where I started pursuing being a stunt performer and an actor. And for a while I did circus and stunts. And then I dropped circus because I felt like that story was complete. And then I started moving into stunts and doing acting and training martial arts very, very seriously. And that was about almost 14 years ago that process started. And I've never looked back since. And it just clicked for me, where like we'd go into these very technical martial arts classes and I just knew what to do with my body. And of course there's always more to learn, but especially with the weapon stuff, where I was just like, oh, I know how to use this. My brain capacity can make me do this. So I just started pushing that. And then eventually I realized that the world doesn't know about these cool skills. And so I just started putting them online, and then I had videos go viral. And then I've created a whole membership online training platform. I do tutorials regularly, and it's everything that I'm doing right now is just about sharing these skills, because I know that people want to learn them. They just haven't been accessible before now. So I'm really, really excited to just keep doing that.
I love that. Thanks for sharing that with us. Michelle, you have been a top world champion of patent thriller, dancer, Hollywood actor, and built your own academy with thousands of people. Through the last decades, you have shown a very strong adaptive mindset. And by the way, that make me think of a quote from Gandhi that I would like to share with you. And he said, adaptability is not imitation. It means power of resistance and assimilation. Can you share with me and with us how specifically you went through all those transformation and adaptation, especially at a mindset level?
Yeah, thank you, by the way. I think mindset wise, I rely a lot on my own inner guidance and intuition. And when I was
Mhm.
young and I was competing, it was all about trying to prove that I was good enough because we were getting judged. And so
Yeah.
everything about moving forward was all
Mhm.
about like if I train this or if I work on this, I'm going to get better at this. And there's this
Yeah.
constant milestone that keeps jumping out ahead of you. So you work really hard, you get there. You work really
Yeah.
hard, you get there. So I've always focused on putting really specific goals ahead of me, and I kept that through most of my 20s and my early professional career. But then I started realizing that that actually wasn't helping me
Mhm.
anymore, and that there's so much about life that comes from just this inner confidence of
Mhm.
I've got this, and that
Yeah.
knowing that if I apply myself, I could be really good at that. Or if I look in that direction, I might discover something new about myself.
Yeah.
And I think for me, it's always been about like my sort of like shadow is letting go of my ego and my identity that gets wrapped up in these skills. And so for a long time I was like a high level baton twirler, but then I just transformed into a professional, but then I was no longer that, but that all of that came
Mhm.
with me. And it's about sort of taking all this knowledge and sort of laying it all bare, and then you can just sort of pick and choose what works for you. You don't have to take everything with you all the time. And I was always taught you
Yeah.
got to follow the rules and everything. It's like this and this. And what I
Mhm.
realized was like, no, you can take the best of everything that you're learning and
Yeah.
take it in and sort of rearrange it in yourself.
Yeah.
And what that becomes is this very unique being that we
Yeah.
all are. We're all just a culmination of stories. And so I realized that I could do that physically as well, as I could take the best of all these skills
Yeah.
and sort of break them down into their most mechanical basic pieces, and
Mhm.
that will come with me and serve me when I choose to move on to another practice or another activity. And
Yeah.
I don't really feel like I've quit everything. It's just been this very natural evolution of like where my interest lies. But I think mindset wise, I've always had this essence of I can do anything,
Mhm.
and nobody can stop me if I believe in myself.
Mhm.
And that, even through when I was a young kid and I was competing, there was this like, even if I'm not placing or getting the scores that I want,
Mhm.
I can work harder. I can do that. I can
Yeah.
take the responsibility for myself. And then as a professional, there is nobody supervising you when you're a professional performer or a professional artist. It's all you and your own motivation, your own discipline. So it again, it comes back to I know that I can do this, whatever my goal is. I know that I can do it. I know that I
Mhm.
can learn this skill. I know that I can work on that show or do that performance. I know that I can do it, but it's a matter of me believing in myself,
Yeah.
because I sort of grew up with the notion that if I don't believe in me, nobody's going to believe in me. And
Mhm.
if I can have the confidence to walk forward and just learn, and that doesn't mean you have to be perfect at everything, it's just an essence of being open to taking in more knowledge, more wisdom, more experience. And that is what creates this confidence and mastery that will bring you forward. And I often say to my students is you need to have a beginner's mind, which is a
Mhm.
Bruce Lee concept where
Yeah.
even if you are a master at something, there is always something more to learn. And
Mhm.
even if you've been doing something for 30 years, like I have, there's still more for me to learn about it.
Yeah.
And if you can just keep yourself open to that, you will receive new information. But if you're in a space of like, oh, I know everything, I'm the best, I'm the master,
Yeah.
you're just going to get stuck there.
Yeah.
And you sometimes need to get stuck there in order for you to break through and be like, oh, I've been in my ego, I need to move out. But I think that it's a constant, to me, it's like walking up a mountain. You're just constantly
Yeah.
walking up, you just never stop climbing. And that's the way I've approached my physical skills and my physical practice. But that's also the way
Yeah.
that I approach my mindset in those things. Is there there's the top of the mountain, and maybe I'll never get there, but I can enjoy the climb.
When I was discovering and looking at your video, your content, and your art, what I really loved in your art was the incredible precision of the move and the strong spirit of tenacity and determination. Can you share some more where it comes from, and for the one who are watching, can you give as well some best practices on how to keep that and that spirit on the long run?
I think that in terms of activities that I chose as a child to do, of all of them, I picked baton twirling, which is very much a sport, as you mentioned, a sport of precision, a sport of determination and tenacity, like you said, because so much of it is trying to keep the baton in your hands. But the only way to keep your baton in your hands is to drop it. And the way I grew up was being told that dropping was bad. But what I've realized through life and being an adult and a human on this planet is we need the feedback of failure. And I'm air quoting failure because nothing is really ever failure. And we need that feedback in order for us to evolve. And that is one of the most important aspects and lessons that I want to give to people in learning freestyle staff spinning. Is it's the ultimate metaphor for life. You drop it, you pick it up, you do it again, because eventually you will catch it. But if you do it once and drop it, you're never going to catch it. And I feel like that really translates into life of like, you stumble, you get up and you keep going. You stumble, you get up and keep going. Like when a baby learns to walk, they don't just fall over once and then give up. They keep standing up and falling down, standing up and falling down. And it's that exact same thing. It's about just not giving up on yourself. And so one of the most important lessons that I want my students to learn is that you can gain a lot of value in those drops of this skill. This skill is so mechanical. There's a lot of physics. It's these very minute details make a huge difference. And if you can learn to just relax into those details and relax into the mechanics, you can do amazing things. And I often get a lot of feedback when I'm teaching, when I'll teach somebody a skill and they're like, I didn't think I could do that. I'm like, well, you can, because you practiced it and you receive so much feedback from that drop. But if you didn't drop it, you would never receive that feedback and you would never improve. And so I think that changing our mindsets around failure is a huge thing. And there is so much value in the tenacity, in the relentless, like just being relentless about not giving up. Because as soon as you give up, that's when you stop evolving and things don't go your way. But if you're constantly evolving and constantly adapting, there's nothing that can stop you. And that's the metaphor that I want people to get with the staff is the more you drop it, the better you're going to be. And me coming from a space, it's sort of my own healing, because I came from a space where dropping meant I was failing, dropping meant I was failing as a human, that I was failing as a person, that I was failing in life. That's the lesson that I took from my training, because I used to get in trouble for dropping. But now I'm healing that through my students of like, you drop it as much as you can, because that is where the gold is. It's that frustration. I love watching people, and I love it in myself, but I love like when I finally catch it. But that space where you're like, I need to catch this. I need to, and you get so frustrated, but you're so fired up about it. That is like, can you imagine if we went into life like that, of like, this thing isn't going my way, but you know what? screw it, I'm going to keep going and I'm going to fight through it and I'm going to get through this and I'm going to find my victory, whatever it is. That like that moment, I love watching that in my students because you learn so much about what the essence of life is from that. And yeah, it is an art of precision. It's an art of repetition. I often tell my students to catch 1,000 of something, and people are like, well, that's a lot, but well, if you don't catch 1,000 of something, you're never going to master it. And 1,000 isn't even mastery. 1,000 just means that you can catch it regularly and be able to do it. But then there's still work to be done on the end, because if we're all just masters of everything, that's just really boring. And I think that we all think that we need to be the best at things, but there's so many people out there that are not the best at things, but they're just doing it anyway. And I just, there's a lot of value in failure, and maybe there's just no such thing as failure, honestly. And if we can just learn to take in feedback just as it is, it's always neutral. It's just because you drop the staff doesn't mean you're failing at staff spinning. It just means you drop that trick. So there's something that you can do, some sort of mechanical fix that you can do to fix that, so that maybe that skill ends up in your hand on the other side. And that is life. That's it right there.
And now I would like to discuss with you a topic that I am sure a lot of people watching are interested in, and it's the topic of purpose. And I can imagine some of the people watching have some challenges to find their life purpose. And it seems that through your ability of transformation and adaptation, you have a propensity or a kind of nature force to find yours. Do you have any process or methodology to find your purpose over the time?
I feel like I grew up with a strong sense of purpose from a very, very young age, like pre-baton. I've always had something to do here.
Okay.
And I feel like my parents, specifically my mom, was really good at helping me like own that. And she's always said, like, you're very unique and you don't have to be like everyone else. And that really helped me because I could sort of follow that very strong inner guidance of like, there's something you need to do. And it obviously was something to do with baton, because baton became so intense so quickly, and everything about my life. And so there was something about that. But I didn't quite know what it was yet, but I just felt like, and I still feel like, that I'm not finished. And so it is up to me to open myself up to receive whatever guidance or messages that are around me about what is the finish. And throughout my entire 20s as well, there's something I needed to be doing. And that's why I kept searching for new things, because having done my sport very intensely for my entire childhood, and then moving into this dance and circus performance world before I shifted into stunts, it just felt like more of the same, just on a professional level. And that was like, well, that can't be it. There's something more. That can't be it. And so then that's when I started looking through martial arts. And I said it when I was very young, that my life's work will be to change the way that people see baton. Because I knew growing up, we used to just practice in gyms, and there was badminton players and basketball players all around us, and we would be doing some cool stuff, and people would stop and be like, whoa, that is so cool. And so I knew that people want to learn this. People want to learn how to spin a staff. Maybe they don't want to learn how to spin a baton because they have an image or a story about baton, but people want to learn the skill. But there is no way for them to learn. It's not accessible for them to learn. And that clicked for me when I was almost like halfway through my stunt career. It would have been about 2012, 2013, maybe 2011, where I started really thinking about, how do I teach this in a way that's not baton? Because I was doing my martial arts training and it felt good for me. It was healing for me to have something new to learn. But then seeing my peers where I would like, I get in trouble a lot in like martial arts classes with weapons because I'm always flipping it around because it's mindless for me. I'm just like, not thinking about anything. And they're like, can you stop? And I'm like, yes. But people are like, oh, teach me that. And so I'd be teaching. And my plan B side gig since I've been a professional has always been teaching. I was teaching baton, then I was teaching dance, then I was teaching acro, and then I taught baton again. So there was always this element of teaching for me. And it was something that at first I was not very good at because I had this expectation for myself that I needed to be the best. So then the people I was teaching, I had that expectation for them as well. And I'd be like, why don't you want to be a world champion? How could you want to just do this for fun? But then it sort of clued into me that not everybody wants to train like I trained when I was a kid. Some people just want to learn these things for fun. And sort of as I was peeling away of the layers of my own story and my own shadow, I started realizing that I've never done anything for fun. But there are people that do that, and there's so much to learn in that, in just the enjoyment of learning a new skill. And that's where I really started to shift. And then suddenly I was like, oh, people want to know how to learn these skills, but if I teach them with a baton, it's not going to read. But if I just grab a wood staff, it becomes its whole other thing. And then there's this martial aspect to it. And what it really came down to is we all have these inner childs that are not healed, that never got to do certain things, never got to really explore our certain interests or the things that made us feel cool, because either we were trying to appear a certain way or we weren't allowed to. But that we all have this inner child that needs healing. And what I can teach people is something that can heal their inner child and make people feel cool. Because we all, like, all through school, all we wanted to do was feel accepted and significant and feel cool. And here is a skill that I can offer to people that gives them that. Like, you do fancy stuff and you catch a trick, you feel like the coolest person on the planet. And that just that little spark of like, oh, I'm the coolest person right now is everything that I needed, all the feedback that I needed to be like, oh, this is what I'm supposed to be doing. This is the information that I am meant to be sharing. And through that, sort of unintentionally, just me telling my story and me putting these skills in front of people and sort of standing on the front lines and being the leader of a growing community of people that just want to feel more badass in their life, that inspires people, and people want to learn more about that. So it's about the staff spinning, but it's about how do you become cooler in your life. And that is where my purpose lies, and that's where I'm going. And now that I'm ready to let go of the performance side of things, I feel like I'm really able to really turn my attention to that now and really cultivate that for people. And I think right now we really need that in the world.
Yeah. Awesome. Really love that. Today, Michelle, you have a community of more than 500,000 people on Instagram, 250,000 on YouTube. Can you share with the people that are watching this episode today, what is, in your point of view, the key elements that made you grow your audience to this level? And maybe as well share how all this community started.
It started small. It started with me posting videos on social media, Facebook, Instagram, and just showing people that, like, I needed to show it to people for a really long time. And then around 2016, I started putting out video tutorials on YouTube, and not a lot of people watched them at first, but it just felt like all I needed to do was just show people that there's a way in for them to learn it as well. And then I've just never stopped posting. And then as it's evolved and I've sort of gathered more eyes and gathered more people around me, I started doing, a couple of years ago, every now and then I would pop in and do like a live class. I started doing them Facebook Lives, a Facebook Live class. Then stopped doing that for a little bit because I was also working in film full time. So it was really hard to connect with people. And then during the lockdown was when I had a really big breakthrough because I was working full time in film. Then the world shut down and all of my work that I had planned disappeared. But then realized that there's a whole bunch of people that do my tutorials and follow me online and comment on my videos and do all that. They're all just sitting around doing nothing as well, like me. And so I like right away, I pivoted and twisted and I started doing a live stream class every day from the start of the lockdown. And we did over 200 classes before like it just got to the point where the world opened up and we couldn't do it anymore. But I showed up with everybody every day for an hour on YouTube or Instagram or TikTok. Just doing a live class and talking to people and having people ask me questions. And that was a huge turning point for my community. And it was a huge turning point for me because it gave me enough space to realize that film was taking up so much of my attention that I wasn't able to interact and engage with the people who were buying into my community and showing up to my videos every time and leaving me lovely comments and trying to learn this skill. And so I'm really grateful that I got that time with everybody to get to know all the people who are following me. And now I like we're all friends. Like I'm just so grateful for everybody that shows up, and I want to do my best to support them in any way. And I do think that moving forward in the world, it's less about me, the individual, and it's more about us as a collective. And I can support people as a collective. Like I'm not going to be able to get to everyone individually, but I try my best to engage with people when they comment on my videos. I try my best I share people's stories and their progress on my stories because I want people to feel acknowledged and I want other people to see how badass these people are. And I think it's a lot about just acknowledging each other and that we're all on a journey together. And that is what makes the community you don't have to be the best at this. You don't have to want to be a professional at this. It's just a practice that elevates and enhances your life. And so I've found that now I put a lot of effort into engaging with my community, but those live streams that I did were everything. I'm so grateful. And the same people showed up every single day with me and new people will come in and it's just really nice to cultivate a community that's open and kind and safe and inclusive because it's just a stick. You don't need to be anybody to spin a stick. It's available to every single person on this planet. And I want everybody to feel welcome to try at least. You don't have to love it, but like if you want to try, like please come and it doesn't matter what level you are, just join us. We're all at different levels. And I've been learning a lot from my students because they don't have the same training or background that I do. So I will teach them skills and then encourage them to be creative and play with it and just discover what works and what doesn't for you. And then they come up with these amazing combos that I would never come up with because my brain is so like, oh, this is how you do it. And I still suffer from that story of technique, like this has to go like this or it's never going to work. And then these people come out and they're just like, and they have all these like different pathways. And I'm like, whoa, I never would have thought about that. So I'm learning a lot from them. And I think it really comes back down to that beginner's mind where it doesn't matter if you have mastery, there is always something to learn. And so I'm here leading and guiding this community, but they're teaching me just as much. And that's a very symbiotic relationship. And I think it's a very sustainable relationship. So I'm really, really proud of it and happy. And they're all doing so well. I'm just so happy for them.
Thank you very much for being here and sharing your success story journey and advices with us.
Thank you so much for having me. This was a lot of fun. And I'm really happy that we got to chat. So thank you. I really appreciate it. And let me know how I can share this with my community because I'm sure they would love to hear your podcast.